You know, I think anyone and everyone can name what Ariana Grande song would say her biggest hit from every era, right? That's not what this video is. In this video, I want to go through the one Ariana Grande song from every single era and album cycle that I believe truly defines what she was trying to do, like what the era was trying to accomplish. This conversation is so interesting to me because just because a song is like the biggest hit from that era does not mean that is the song that defined the era. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it absolutely is not. We will cover music videos, live performances, possibly some interviews, and just like overall image shifts as long as they help our argument in terms of how the era landed to the general public and to her fans. I actually do think there is one song that single-handedly changed the way the public viewed Ariana Grande as like an entity, but we will get there. If you're new here, my name is Cedric. I talk about pop music and pop culture, and to get started, I want to start with the album that changed the game for Ariana Grande, yours truly. Now, for each of these sections, I want to talk about what the public pick would probably be, and then what my personal pick would probably be. Now, this is Ariana Grande's breakout era, right? And the mission was simple. Stop being the Nickelodeon girl who can sing with the red hair and start being the entity known as Ariana Grande. I think if you were to ask, the general public what song from this album is the most representative of the era, they would say The Way, and I think I would have to agree. The Way was Ariana Grande's breakthrough single, and it was the first time that the public really saw who Ariana Grande wanted to be as a recording artist. This song did a lot in one shot. It introduced so many aspects of Ariana Grande that would carry throughout her career, honestly, even to this day. Like, the song was a mix of whistle tones, throwback R&B, playful chemistry, and it really showed her star power all in one shot. Even the people who do not know much about Ariana Grande probably know this song and are at least familiar with kind of the time period of when this song came out. Introducing the real Ariana Grande after the false start that was Put Your Hearts Up. Do you remember that song? Because I used to love Put Your Hearts Up. I don't know if it's because nowadays, well, not even nowadays, Ariana Grande has been very vocal that she hates that song and she wants nothing to do with it. She could throw it out and burn it if she could. And I don't know if it's because I've heard her say so many times that she hates that song that I no longer like it. But now, anytime that I hear it, I feel almost disrespectful. Like I shouldn't be listening to it. Which because that song is not terrible. It's not awful. It shows off her range really well. But all in all, I think we can all agree that Put Your Hearts Up did not accurately represent the Ariana Grande that we know to this day. So it is great that she was able to have a successful new beginning after that song. The Way was the first time that people heard the combination that would define Ariana Grande for years to come. And I would describe Ariana Grande's sound as a mix of retro R&B with a lot of vocal agility and range mixed with this sweetness and confidence. And just a quick mention, this is also the first time that Mac Miller was, introduced in Ariana Grande's story, whether people knew the role that he would play in her career or not. Her debut era had a lot of innocence around it, but it really drove home the fact that Ariana Grande really was trying to focus on this classic R&B sound that was completely separate from her identity as Cat Valentine. And I'm so glad that she did. I feel like Put Your Hearts Up is a Cat Valentine song and The Way is an Ariana Grande song. Does that make sense? And before we move on to my everything, I will say that an honorable mention is Honeymoon Avenue. Because that song, I truly feel while, Ariana Grande is very heavily influenced by classic R&B, she's also very heavily influenced by this classic 50s doo-wop sound. And that honestly has shown up in almost every single project since. Whether it's Honeymoon Avenue, Moonlight, she really loves that classic 50s, I was gonna say grandma, but that's not accurate. Just the classic 50s doo-wop-y type of sound. And I feel like Honeymoon Avenue really described kind of the umbrella genre of her album better than The Way, but overall I would still say The Way is the defining song of this era. With my everything, we were introduced to the mainstream pop star that is Ariana Grande. We had bigger hits, bigger collaborators, and just a lot more reach overall for her music, but she also leaned a lot more into playing the game version of Ariana Grande. This is the era where I feel like the public pick of the song that defined the era is different from what I would. I would say if you were to ask somebody what song defines this era, they would probably say Problem, because that song was massive. I specifically remember where I was when that song was released, and I was shocked. I was shocked. She worked with Max Martin, and they really were focusing on this dubstep type of format where typically with pop songs, like, you know, you have the intro and then the verses that lead up to this chorus, and the chorus is just like, you know, higher notes, louder. It's the anthemic part of the song, so it needs to be big and broad, right? But dubstep oftentimes is defined by the drops, right? It's defined by this, like, we're going up and up and up and up and up, and then once we get to say like the chorus, we drop down, right? That's what this song was, and that was not a common thing for pop stars to do at the time. So I do feel like Problem is influential in that way, but I would say the song that defines the era is Love Me Harder. Like, if you want pure 2024 impact, then yeah, I completely understand if you want to go with Problem as the pick, but I truly feel like Love Me Harder more accurately represents the direction Ariana Grande was trying to take her career. Problem really feels like the giant launch record of the era, right? It's loud, it's huge, it's immediate, and it really helped to break that ceiling to push Ariana Grande into the next level of her career. Like, Problem launched the era, but Love Me Harder accurately describes what Ariana Grande was becoming. It feels like the first time that she is really fully selling this like adult, moody, controlled pop star energy instead of just chasing, you know, the biggest radio hit possible. This was the first area that Ariana Grande went from a promising vocalist to like a fully realized commercial pop machine. And that's why I mentioned that, you know, I do understand if you choose Problem as the song, because it was really like the perfect arrival record and really inserted Ariana Grande into like the center of the cultural conversation. But the question is not what the biggest launch was, it's what is the biggest defining moment of the era. And that's why I feel like Love Me Harder wins, because it is the first fully transformative moment that we got from Ariana Grande up until that point. This era was very hit heavy and very successful, but it also feels a lot less personal than what had come before it. And by the end of this era, like, I think people were really starting to ask the question of like, you know, we all know that Ariana Grande is a pop star now. There's no denying that, but it's about what type of pop star is Ariana Grande trying to be. And that shift really matters, because Dangerous Woman is really where Ariana Grande stopped basically hinting at like adulthood or, you know, becoming a fully fledged artist. And Dangerous Woman is where she built an entire era around that concept. Now, before we get into what song I think really defines this era, I do think that we cannot skip over Focus, right? I think Ariana Grande wants us to skip over Focus, but like, we're not gonna let you do that, girl. Like, Focus was a moment that needs to be addressed, because her and her team really thought they could just re-release Problem and it was gonna perform like the same way. And it didn't. Now, I personally enjoyed Focus. I love the music video. I loved that moment for her, because it did feel like they were like, oh, you know, you like Problem. Well, let's just give you Problem again and we'll just see if it works. And it didn't. And that's really important, because I truly think, even though they didn't come out and say this, I really think that the underperformance of Focus really made her and her team focus on what this era actually needed to be to push her to the next level. I think Dangerous Woman ended up working so well for her because it really does two jobs at once, right? It was a vocal showcase, as we have all come to expect from Ariana Grande, but it also was an image statement for who she wanted to be. Like, this is where Ariana Grande stopped feeling like she was trying to sell us the fact that she was like an adult, that she was a big girl now, and like she was actually living it, or it felt like she was truly like in it, you know? In my opinion, I really think that one of the most defining moments of this era was that acapella. Did she sing Dangerous Woman, right? Yes. That moment was honestly career shifting, because it was like, I think when she first started to like release the imagery for this album where she had the bunny ears and stuff, it was coming across almost like cosplay. And it was like, wait, what are we doing here? Like, but it was different enough from what everyone else was doing that it still made her stand out. But instead of just leaning into that and being like, okay, we're gonna go full just like pop star, you know, without recognizing her talent, she doubled down on like, you know, not only am I a pop star visually, but I can still just stand here and sing my face off and you're going to appreciate it and love it. And what about it? Now, when it comes to the song of the era, I think that the public pick is probably Into You. Into You is one of Ariana Grande's best songs ever, and I think a lot of fans would consider it like the crown jewel of that era. It sounds massive, it looks massive, and it truly feels like the polished final form of that period. Like, if someone was like, you know what, Into You is the song of the era, I would totally get that. That's a very hard song to beat. But Dangerous Woman is the mission statement. It is the thesis. Like, it is the song that actually sold the rebrand to us. The title, the vocal performance, the styling, and the live performances all work to tell us one thing. Ariana Grande is stepping into a more adult, sexy, moody lane on purpose. Like, I really do think that even though Into You is like the perfected final form, without Dangerous Woman, we would not have a perfected final form in the first place. And then, unfortunately, real life happened in a way that nobody could have predicted, and I think that's why this next era hit so differently. Next, we are talking about Sweetener, and Sweetener is Ariana Grande's like healing and reinvention era. This was the comeback that had to sound hopeful without pretending like nothing had happened. I'm sure at this point we all are somewhat aware that between Dangerous Woman and Sweetener is when the Manchester bombing happened, and Ariana Grande obviously took a break during that time. I think the big question around that time wasn't like whether or not Ariana Grande could come back. It was more like what kind of comeback would even make sense. When it comes to this era, I think the public pick would probably be God Is a Woman. If there's one song that I think was the most like successful and the most widespread around that time, it was God Is a Woman. And I think a lot of it, you know, was because blasphemy and people were like, why are you calling God a woman and you're just doing this and this and that or whatever. I think it was like you almost had to work hard not to see what she was trying to convey with that song. So I think that song made the most noise. And like God Is a Woman has like iconic giant pop imagery. The video, the visuals, like the title alone all scream era defining pop moment. I do think it's one of the boldest and probably one of the most memorable songs of this era. And for a lot of fans, I do think that it feels like the most obvious like visual centerpiece from Sweetener. But even with all that being said, I feel like the defining song of that era is No Tears Left to Cry. One of the reasons why I think that song makes a lot more sense just for the time that it came out was because it feels like healing, but not like you're healed all the way. Like it feels like a song where you're mid processing all of this like pain and trauma. I think No Tears Left to Cry really defines what this era was trying to do emotionally and publicly. I just think this song is the comeback statement. Like it describes healing, optimism, and survival without like negating everything that came before it. That is one of my favorite Ariana Grande videos because it has such a strong visual language. The upside down world and just this overall sense of like disorientation, I really feel like fit the moment perfectly. God Is a Woman really is like the bigger self-contained pop icon moment and maybe even like the more flashier visual moment. But if I'm choosing the song that truly represents what she was going through, what I think she was trying to convey at the time, it has to be No Tears Left to Cry. And I would say Sweetener as a whole, like as an album and an era, really is the first time that it truly felt like Ariana Grande wasn't focusing on like just the next album cycle, but she was letting us in on like, basically it was her response to everything that was going on in her life at the time. And what's so wild about this whole era is, as important as Sweetener is, her next album came so fast that it almost rewrote the whole story in real time. Thank You Next was a moment. Like this was her like narrative control era. This is when Ariana turned public chaos into like the cleanest pop statement of her career so far. This is one of those rare Ariana eras where I don't really have to overthink it. Like I think the obvious pick is the right pick here. It's Thank You Next. Like that, it is what it is, you know? This song is this era's thesis statement in a way that very few pop records ever managed to be or get the opportunity to do. This song was a giant hit. It had multiple giant quotes that were constantly being discussed, and it was just like an overall like giant internet moment all at once. Even casual viewers who don't really know much about the album know of this song and know what it meant. The song is not only successful, I think it's the most efficient narrative reset of her career thus far. It turns grief, mess, headlines, and just overall like relationship discourse into something that's clear, quotable, and just like impossible to ignore. The lines about her exes obviously made the song like super like instantly discussable, right? But I think the reason the song has so much staying power is because it was mature instead of petty. Like it wasn't a diss track to her exes. It felt like she was truly being honest. Like it almost felt like we were being let in like a fly on the wall during one of her therapy sessions. I think the video does a lot of heavy lifting also here because it took a huge pop song and turned it into like a full pop culture event. I do think an honorable mention here is Seven Rings because that song, I think it might have been either the first or the second biggest hit from the album. And like, sure, it's the biggest like flex on the album, but I think we can all agree that Thank You Next actually like describes the era more efficiently. And this is honestly just one of my favorite eras because it really feels like this was the point that Ariana Grande like really understood how to control the story and the narrative instead of just surviving it. And after all that chaos, like the next era had to feel quieter, softer, more subdued, not really trying to prove anything and just focusing on giving us good music and getting back into that like older R&B bag that she does so well. Now we are moving on to Positions, and the Positions era was very interesting because a lot of people were not huge fans of it at the time, but now all of a sudden people are coming around to it saying that it's actually a really good album, you know, they misjudged it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm always on the right side of history. I loved that album when it came out, and I'm just glad that people are actually like understanding that in the past they just didn't have taste. That's fine. Accept it. I think Positions works as a concept in an era because it like immediately tells you what Ariana Grande you're getting. More settled, more grown, more relational, and like just less interested in producing just like as many bangers as possible. Shout out to Miley Cyrus. Now, when it comes to the public pick for the song of the era and my pick, I do think this is one of those times where they both do align. I would say Positions is the most era-defining song of this album. I think the title track sold this era perfectly right away. The concept is easy to grasp. The hook is catchy and sticky, like it really sticks into your mind. And the whole like White House imagery, I think really helped to drive the point home of like, you know, I can be a woman in the office and like running the country or whatever, and then I can be at home waiting for you, ready to do what I do. Like I have many facets of myself and I am willing to switch up the positions for you. Like, so, you know, come on and have fun with me. And I do think the White House imagery gave it its own like visual identity because it didn't feel or look like anything that she had done before. And I think that the song Positions represents this era because it's just the song that I think most people think of when they think of this era. Even people who don't love the album still understand what the era was trying to accomplish. I thought about saying POV because that song structurally is fantastic and it's a very emotional song. I think one of her most emotional, but I would still say that Positions represents the era overall. Positions really sells this like domestic in love version of Ariana Grande that this whole era was trying to sell to us. And I think it was also a proper introduction into what the rest of the album would sound like. A lot of the album does have the same, like a similar vibe as Positions. I think the main difference between POV and Positions is like POV is really like, it works as the heart of the album, whereas Positions, it's the headline and it really sets the visual standard. It's the best song that represents the entirety of the album in the era. I also love this era because it really was our last fully like classic Ariana Grande pop star era before she started the whole Wicked era and again changed the public perception of how people viewed her. And that's what makes this next era so interesting because like after the whole Positions era and then, you know, she took this long gap when she was doing the Wicked promo and soundtrack and everything, Ariana Grande's return had to do one thing quickly and successfully. It was now her job to remind people that the pop star that is Ariana Grande still exists, right? It didn't just die off once she went into the movie acting world. And that is where Eternal Sunshine comes into play, another one of my personal favorite Ariana Grande albums. And honestly, I feel like I've said that about every album so far, but you know what? Deal with it. This was Ariana's return and reclaim era because like, first of all, she had to come back and respond to all the noise because as usual, Ariana Grande always seems to have some type of drama surrounding her. It's usually relationship drama, but I'm not a drama channel. I talk about, you know, I talk about what I talk about. This comeback album really had to separate Ariana Grande, the artist, from Ariana Grande, the actress. Like it had to separate Ariana from Galinda, basically. And it had to fight this like weird public feeling that she was becoming more of a character than a pop star. And this is why I think that Yes and works really well here because it's not subtle, but I don't think that it would have been smart to be subtle at this time, especially with her past kind of setting the precedent that she is not afraid to basically just say what's going on, you know, thinking of Thank You Next. Like, I think her being subtle would have come across as just like weak, like she was like chickening out. Like she had to just come out and say what needed to be said, you know? I think the public pick would probably be We Can't Be Friends, because that song, I think it is the most popular song from the album. And like, obviously We Can't Be Friends acts as kind of like the emotional centerpiece of the album, right? Like if we're talking about the album as like a full body of work, I think We Can't Be Friends does a very similar thing as POV for the album as a whole. But again, if the question is what song defined the era as a whole, I think it has to be Yes And. Like, I think the defining conversation around this era was that it felt like Ariana Grande was like, she basically like was trying to mold her whole self after Galinda when it came to like the hair, when it came to just like the way that she was singing, when it, like, you know, every time you saw her, it seemed like she was only talking about Wicked. And so it almost felt like she was becoming Galinda, you know what I mean? The song arrived with an obvious point of view and immediately put Ariana back at the center of the conversation rather than being like just another actress or like a tabloid subject. And for casual viewers or listeners, I do think that this song, Yes And, was the cleanest entry point into the new era. And the visuals alone, I think, are better than We Can't Be Friends, personally. Like, no shade to We Can't Be Friends, but like, the red lip, the monochrome visuals, the dance floor energy, having the critics in the videos like judging her or whatever, and then I think she like, didn't she like burn them or something at the end? I don't know. I think she killed them. I don't remember what happened at the end, if I'm being honest with you. But I just think the video overall felt like Ariana Grande was re-entering the room, the cultural pop music conversation on her own terms. And I think that pattern across all 7 of her eras is like the real takeaway here. Ariana's most defining songs are not always like the biggest songs of the era or like the biggest flexes, right? I truly believe that Ariana Grande's most defining songs of every era are truly the ones that accomplish what the era was trying to do. You know, some Ariana Grande eras are defined by a breakout, some are defined by a rebrand, some are defined by healing, and some are defined by like damage control turned into pop. I truly feel like the most defining song of an era is the one that explains the chapter the best and the fastest. And I truly believe that over the course of Ariana Grande's career, she has become fantastic at picking songs that really help to do narrative work for her eras rather than just picking, you know, the biggest songs or the most, you know, radio friendly playing the game type of songs. I am really excited because Ariana Grande is working on her 8th studio album and you just know it's gonna be good because she's working with, I think, like Jermaine Dupri. Maybe it could have been a rumor. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I'm just excited for more Ariana Grande music, especially after Eternal Sunshine. Like, I really want to know where she's headed. I think we're in for a treat, genuinely. I thought she wasn't gonna release anything else, to be so honest. Like, I thought she was gonna be like done. Like, she was gonna be in her like actress bag. But you know what? I don't think Ariana could ever like truly leave music. Even if she's just like doing a song on a soundtrack, like I think we will have Ariana Grande's voice in our ears for years to come. I love this woman so much, and yeah. Now, I am not always right, okay? So if you feel like there is a better song from one of the eras that better defines, you know, what the era was trying to accomplish, then comment it down below. Let's argue. Let's have a debate. I'm down. If there's one thing I love doing is debating music by my favorite artists. So hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a great time. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it, and I will see you all in the next one.